So the fifth largest state in the US, with over 13 million people and a $900 billion GDP, has just proposed a bill to adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset, potentially investing 10% of the country's treasury into Bitcoin. So are we seeing signs that states in the US are slowly but surely trying to front run what Donald Trump is going to do at a federal level in 100 days in early January when he is inaugurated as the president of the United States? I believe we are, and I do believe we are seeing FOMO. The man who broke and leaked the news 24 hours ago, Dennis Porter, said that in 24 hours, a game-changing announcement is going to take place. And he has also said some really interesting things about what he expects to see in the future and the rumors we are seeing behind the scenes today. Let's check this tweet out right here. We can see very clearly the man who broke the news has said multiple countries are buying Bitcoin and haven't announced it. 5+ countries are looking to pass Bitcoin reserve laws, and 10+ states will introduce strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation. These are the rumors that one of the most connected Bitcoiners is hearing in America, Dennis Porter. Okay, I think we are beginning to see the early stages of FOMO. So let's actually break down, what is this law? Who is the state that's adopted Bitcoin? We're of course talking about Pennsylvania. Let's actually have a look at what this state is doing and why they are so significant. The first reason for why they are so significant is because at the very top here, you guys can see they have a $915 billion GDP, making them the 6th largest economy in the US from an economic standpoint. Then we look at them from a population-based standpoint. They have 13 million people. So 13 million people are essentially about to have their money invested into Bitcoin if this law is signed and passed like it is expected to be. The state wants to put 10% of the treasury's assets into Bitcoin. Who does that money belong to? It's the people, the people's money, okay? This is why this is such a big thing, okay? That's why we are seeing some really interesting things develop around the world in response to this Pennsylvania news. So let's actually break down the Pennsylvania news in a little bit more detail. We can see Simply Bitcoin said earlier today, Pennsylvania's House of Representatives has introduced a bill to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Let's jump on over here to this article here because I have a little bit of highlighted information that I think is really interesting. So this new bill is called the Pennsylvania Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act. It's been introduced as of Thursday, today. This is literally brand new news. This dropped literally hours ago, 1 or 2 hours ago. I was frantically trying to prep this live stream for you guys over the past couple of hours because I think it is massive news, okay? More and more people are slowly beginning to copy what El Salvador has done. Okay, a strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's not a big stretch from Bitcoin legal tender like we have in El Salvador. Daniel in the live chat says he wants to visit El Salvador. I am in El Salvador right now, if you believe it or not. We are filming here at a little apartment that we have with a couple of the other guys on the bitcoinnews.com team, okay? So again, if you're in El Salvador, come say good day to us. But let's dive into what exactly Pennsylvania has done because it's huge and it's massive. And this is why. This bill is going to allow the Treasury to invest 10% of its $7 billion state funds into Bitcoin as a way to help combat inflation and diversify its investments beyond traditional assets like cash reserves. I've got more I want to tell you about this bill, but just think about that for a moment. 10% of a $7 billion treasury. It's a lot of money. $700 million worth of Bitcoin. It's incredible. It's massive. Really big news. Again, think about all of these other companies now that are buying Bitcoin. 130.
Welcome back. Meanwhile, crypto exchange, crypto.com, filing a lawsuit against the Securities and Exchange Commission yesterday.
How many nation states do we have allocating to Bitcoin today? Bhutan, El Salvador, China, America, they all publicly, loudly, and proudly own Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So is the UK. Let's not forget the former global reserve currency holder of the 1800s and early 1900s. They're still squatting on 50,000 coins, the UK. We're beginning to see some really interesting things develop. Michael Saylor's already announced that he's going to be buying all of the daily supply of Bitcoin for the next 1,000 days, for the next 3 years. That's what Michael Saylor's doing with his most recent $42 billion announcement. He wants to raise $42 billion to buy Bitcoin. He's literally told us over the next 3 years, all of the newly issued Bitcoin, the 450 Bitcoin that are mined every single day, I'm buying it all. He doesn't care about price. This is one entity. This is one of the 2,500 billionaires. This is one of the 58,000 public companies. One individual has bought all of the newly issued Bitcoin supply for the next 3 years. He said it loudly. He said it proudly. As he said in 2020 to Keith McCullough. Keith, what happens to all of these beautiful models when 10 billionaires stand up and say, I own Bitcoin, I'm not ashamed of it, I'm going to buy more? All of your models will be destroyed, completely devastated. Bitcoin goes to the moon. That's what he said 4 years ago. We're beginning to see some serious FOMO take place. We also have BlackRock over the past 300 days. They themselves have also bought all of the newly issued Bitcoin that's mined every single day. This is just BlackRock and Michael Saylor buying double the amount of Bitcoins that are mined every day. Somebody say supply shock? I think that's what we're feeling, guys. And then we have states like Pennsylvania come out and say, yeah, we're also going to be contributing to the supply shock with $700 million of buyer pressure. Rock in the chat says, when Lambo? This is what I believe is going to be different this cycle. I believe in 2017, people were selling Bitcoin to buy a Lambo. In 2025, people will be selling those Lambos that they bought with Bitcoin in 2017 to buy Bitcoin. This is the psychological flip that's happening. And that is because Bitcoin is being recognized as the world's dominant store of value asset. Right now, we're trading at $89,000 a coin. We hit a high of $93,000 yesterday. Still doesn't really feel real to look at that price chart right there and say the words. Bitcoin was $93,000 yesterday. I'm honestly numb to it, to be entirely honest with you guys. I think it's great. Bitcoin's pumped from 60K to 93K in 2 weeks. But, wake me up when Bitcoin pumps from 630K to $930,000 in a few weeks. Again, not making short-term price predictions. Nothing on this channel is financial advice. But I believe that's how Bitcoin's going to monetize. It's going to happen really quickly, really rapidly. You guys know the 12 best days of Bitcoin, or the 12 days where you get most of Bitcoin's returns, they will happen in 12 days. I hope that made sense. I might have butchered that explanation a little bit. But that's to say that it's a bad idea to try to time the Bitcoin market. Okay? Time in the market beats time in the market. We really tried to encourage you guys over these past 8 months where Bitcoin was chopping sideways in this channel that I've drawn on the chart to just continue buying Bitcoin, prepare for the bull run. We told you this typically always happens in summer months for Bitcoin. Bitcoin gets boring in the summer months. Okay, but if you just buy Bitcoin, you are front running nation states like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, who have also been rumored to be secretly accumulating Bitcoin. I want to talk about Qatar and Saudi Arabia first. Before I do that, I'm going to have to get producer Pam to plug in the laptop for me because we are about to go flat. And there's no way that I'm going to let the laptop go flat on the 1,685 of you guys tuning in today. So I want to be talking about what is going to be going on. Is Qatar and Saudi Arabia secretly accumulating Bitcoin? Is that happening? But again, I just want to remind you guys, you have the opportunity today to be front running these nation states. these states like Pennsylvania, massive states, okay? These are not small states that are making these massive Bitcoin announcements. Okay, Pennsylvania, they're big, a $900 billion GDP. If you were to rank them in regards to how big their economy is against the rest of the world, they're a top 20 economy in the world. They're big. There's not many countries with a $1 trillion economy. Pennsylvania is not a small state. They're not a small little place. And they are buying Bitcoin. If you don't own any Bitcoin, you should probably begin to learn about Bitcoin. If you're interested in buying Bitcoin, again, just be really careful where you buy your Bitcoin. Everybody learned a pretty painful lesson of 2022 using exchanges like BlockFi, FTX, Celsius. Again, this is why we're always cautious of crypto companies. This is why we point you towards companies that encourage you to buy Bitcoin only. Okay, and this is why we always encourage you guys about Rhino Bitcoin. Okay, as you can see, Rhino Bitcoin has a really slick user interface. You can, pay with Bitcoin using the Lightning Network, which is what we believe is, it's one of the best ways to use Bitcoin. It's one of the best ways to orange pill your friends and family member, is to use that little Lightning feature and send Bitcoin instantly. It's one of my go-to orange pilling methods. Okay, so again, if you do want to go to a place where we consider them to be a one-stop shop where you can buy Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin, use the Lightning Network, that's what Rhino is. They are the all-in-one Bitcoin super application. And pretty soon you're even going to be able to do some really cool things like borrow against your Bitcoin. Okay, so again, we've got everything you need to know about Rhino linked down below in the description of today's show, because Rhino is going to help you guys front run nation states like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, like states like Pennsylvania, who today have made enormous announcements. Let's actually go back to this news regarding Pennsylvania, because I want to talk about it more in a little bit more detail. So Dennis Porter broke the news yesterday, November 13th. Have a look at the date of this tweet. In less than 24 hours, a game-changing announcement will take place. But it won't stop there. The next week, month, and all of 2025 will be filled with progress for Bitcoin. Think about that last sentence there. It won't stop there. All of 2025 is going to be filled with amazing news for Bitcoin. Dennis tweeted this yesterday, before the Pennsylvania news came out today. I mean, Dennis has a pretty good track record. Even though he cops some flack sometimes on Twitter, he's nailed a lot of these predictions. He has, I believe, talked to more government officials and government people about Bitcoin than most other Bitcoiners. That's what he does with Satoshi Action Fund. So I wanted to show you that tweet of his, because there's a couple more tweets that I find even more interesting. So again, Dennis came out and broke the news this morning. He went out on a limb yesterday, predicted we'd see massive news. We saw it. And then this is the news that I think is more interesting. Well, this is the tweet that I think is more interesting. Okay? Because a lot of people are thinking, okay, Bitcoin's at 93,000. It's nearly topped. This cycle, Bitcoin's only going to hit 120K. It's only going to hit $150,000. Not so sure, guys. Especially considering what's different this time around. Again, let's not forget, in 2020, you had one public company buying Bitcoin in the year of the halving. So in 2020, it was just Michael Saylor. Elon Musk came out in 2021, but that was a year after the halving. The cycle was nearly finished when Elon Musk put Bitcoin on the balance sheet for Tesla. A month later, China banned Bitcoin mining. And also coincidentally, only weeks after that, Elon said, yeah, you know what? Bitcoin's dirty. Bitcoin's not ESG friendly. I'm not accepting it for payment for Teslas anymore. Strange. But he didn't sell his Bitcoin, did he? Not then. But this cycle, we're in the year of the halving still. It's November. It's November 14th. It's the week of adopting Bitcoin. One of the biggest Bitcoin conferences in Latin America, probably the biggest in Central America. And we have 130 public companies with Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Very different this time around. There's probably going to be more. Every day there's new public companies adopting Bitcoin. Literally every single day. It's actually wild how quickly the news keeps coming out. This literally came out yesterday. I was going to make a video about it. Genius Group, has committed 90% of its current and future reserves to be held in Bitcoin. The AI company said it plans to acquire an initial $120 million of Bitcoin. Just another public company yesterday said we're buying $120 million of Bitcoin. How much Bitcoin is mined every single day? Let's do some quick maths. We know there's 450 coins mined every single day. So 450 times, let's say 90,000. It's pretty much where we are at the time of recording. Quick math says, is that $40 million worth of Bitcoin mined every single day? Fact check me in the chat. If that's not correct, leave a comment. I believe it is though. So an AI company said, yeah, we're just going to buy 3 days worth of the Bitcoin supply. Again, we got 130 public companies with Bitcoin on the balance sheet this year. The supply shock is really accelerating. To front run the supply shock, again, check out the link to Rhino Bitcoins in the live chat. It's linked right there. Just buy Bitcoin. Don't wait for dips, just buy Bitcoin. I was talking to my buddy Kyle about this yesterday. Just be really careful with DCA. Price of Bitcoin can really run away from you really quickly. But I think this is interesting. Okay, I think this news from Pennsylvania, well, obviously it only happened 2 hours ago, so it hasn't got a ton of attention yet. But I think this is one of the biggest stories we've seen in a little while. Since the election of Trump, I think this is one of the biggest Bitcoin stories. This is massive. It's a big state. As you can see, for those who are not familiar with the US geography, maybe like me, this chart right here is a little bit useful. Shows us where Pennsylvania is. Let's have a look. They're on the East Coast. They're tucked in there next to New York. Maybe we're going to see a lot more East Coast adoption of Bitcoin. Let's not forget what Florida did recently. They're embracing Bitcoin. Texas as well. You couldn't really call Texas East Coast. We'll call them Southern America. Again, I think we're going to see some really interesting adoption from regions around the world like America, all over America, not just the East Coast. California's done a little bit of a Bitcoin backflip more recently. Hunter wanted to know what state was adopting Bitcoin. Come on, Texas, get your stuff together. Love to know what state you guys are tuning in from. It's a great time to be in El Salvador. 10% is a big number. This is something Seba Brown makes an incredible point in the live chat. It's a big deal. I was talking about this in a live stream earlier in the week. The 9th largest pension fund, the state of Wisconsin, kind of shocked a lot of people early in the year by saying we've bought $170 million of Bitcoin. This is a 0.1% allocation. We want to bring that up to a 1% allocation. Some people smirked at that and they said, 0.1%. Who cares? But we've slowly been seeing a little bit of competitive FOMO. Just this week, we saw a UK pension fund allocate 3% to Bitcoin of all the money they have. As Seba Brown says here, 10% is a big number. It's a massive number. So the bill, you're 100% correct, Turb. I hope I didn't confuse anyone. The bill has to be passed. It does look very likely to be passed, but caveat, it does need to be passed first. And it's coming in 2025. 2025, some people think, oh, it's a long way away. It's only 6 weeks, guys. It's November 14th. We got proud Pennsylvanian resident in the chat. Ram, welcome, my friend. Elaine, one of our favorite Bitcoiners. Sell your Lambos and chairs now. Buy Bitcoin. And as McLovin says, none of this should be a surprise if you've been paying attention, okay? Again, there are new, really bullish developments always coming out about Bitcoin. We showed you this one the other day. I want to put it up on screen somewhere over there. 1,200 institutions have been quietly buying Bitcoin. We did a live stream on that 4 days ago when Eric Balchunas, ETF expert and insider, said, look, there's 1,200 institutions buying Bitcoin. This is really weird for a new ETF to have that many owners. Normally, it's just 12 or 15 institutions. We have 1,200 buying Bitcoin. If you want to learn more about that, I'm going to put a link to that video up on screen somewhere around there after the live stream is finished. And with all that said, guys, There's 2,564 of you guys tuning in on Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. Hope you enjoy your rest of your day.